Welcome back. Yesterday marked Human Rights Day in South Africa. The day was observed to remember the 69 people killed by police in Sharpeville 56 years ago. This year's theme is South Africa United Against Racism. It's also an issue that has been plaguing the United States. Human rights activist Dr. Jamal Bryant has been a catalyst in the fight against racism. He joins me in studio now. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamal, for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.
I understand you must still be a little bit jet lagged from arriving in the country just yesterday.
Yes, but I'm excited to be here, so I'm alive and vibrant, but as soon as the show is over, I'm taking a nap.
A well-deserved nap, I imagine.
Absolutely.
Now, you're based in Baltimore, and this is really the heart of where one would feel the racial divide that exists within American society today. What are some of the challenges that you're facing, especially in the context of the fight for racial equality?
You're seeing an emerging generation who has really become restless with the slow progress. We believed, albeit falsely, after the election of President Obama, it was a post-racial society. But we're seeing white supremacy rising at an all-time high. When you see the emergence of a Donald Trump who's speaking language that would ring from the 1950s and the 1960s, aggressive policing, mass incarceration, high unemployment, dismal educational status, it really says to us, we are in a time machine. And these young people are saying we need reform to take place now.
What are young people doing to mobilize themselves in their communities to make sure that their voices are heard?
One is mobilization for this presidential election, realizing that while the presidential election is important, you have to also focus on the local election. Who will be the state's attorney? Who would be the mayor? Who are the sitting judges? And so these young people are becoming very well acclimated in the political process and grooming them to be the future political force of our country.
When you look at it, do you feel that racism, particularly where you are, where you come from,
yes,
is more structural also than it is about just racist attitudes towards black people?
I think that it's become more sophisticated. In the Jim Crow era, you had whites only sign, coloreds only sign. Now there are no signs, but you'll have contaminated water in Flint, Michigan, where 90,000 residents are contaminated with impure water and nobody goes to jail. When you look at last year, 2,147 unarmed people were killed by the police. It says to us that we've got a whole lot of work that we need to do to combat it.
What success would you say campaigns such as the hashtag Black Lives Matter have made a difference in perhaps, if nothing else, exposing just the level of racial inequality that still exists?
I think a sense of awareness. One of the critical moments of the civil rights movement was the dawn of television, people seeing fire hoses and barking dogs. The new greatest weapon of revolutionaries is the cell phone, where we've been able to capture it. Right on this station, it was just a dialogue on the 10th anniversary of Twitter by virtue of the fact that we're referencing that hashtag, and you would be familiar with it. In South Africa says that technology helps the revolution become global.
You, in your personal capacity, have also been quite instrumental in terms of mobilizing the local community, especially when we remember the case of Treverton Martin, who was killed, the 17-year-old teenager who was killed. What has it taken to mobilize society? I mean, at what level do you get people to stand up and say, this actually is going to change once you decide to do something about it?
This is really a coming home for me. I lived in Johannesburg from 93 to 94 as a college student at USA, and to see countless numbers of people vote for the very first time, sleeping out the night before, committed to making a difference and an impact, I brought all of those tools back. And so coming back to this country and seeing open dialogue and discussion on the state of racism and how to address it is not what I'm hearing in the States. We keep using coded language, but to pull the sheets off of it just this weekend, to see the front page that I can stop racism, said to me that we've got a whole lot to do in South Africa, leads America in having that kind of open dialogue.
So do you feel that, you know, in terms of the actual relations between America and South Africa, especially especially where the fight for liberation is concerned. There have been close ties, and leaders such as Martin Luther King have been closely involved in the advancement of the African economy and the African people. To what extent do you think that we're not perhaps leveraging as fully as we can on those ties in order to learn lessons? Because I'm listening to you speak, but much of what you say can very well resonate with any South African who hears.
I think part of the heartache and headache of young South Africans and young Black Americans is we always use as the benchmark Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King, which I think represented one chapter of our development. And so many people who raise them up want to talk about the forgiveness in the absence of justice. And so we've got a whole lot of work to do beyond President Mandela, beyond Dr. Martin Luther King, in terms of our development of not just symbolic justice, but substantive justice. And I think that's what we're looking for in terms of an economic seat at the table.
And just lastly, in terms of the work that you do with working with leaders, how can people who want to get your insights get in touch with you, especially while you're here in the country?
I'm going to be here at the Assemblies of God in Sandton tonight and tomorrow night, beginning at 6:30, talking to young leaders and church leaders on how it is that we move forward with Christ-like compassion and with a moral compass about how do we move a generation and a nation forward.
All right, that's where we'll leave it for this morning. Human rights activist Dr. Jamal Bryant.